The other day I found myself thinking this might be the worst time ever to get into the music industry. And I'm not talking about being a music supervisor for TV and movies or that kind of music industry. I'm talking about being in a band. You might be wondering what set me on that train of thought, or you might not. I'm going to tell you anyway. I realized that I had spent essentially an entire work day, 7.5 hours, working on two things. I was watching tutorials and reading articles on how to improve my YouTube thumbnails and how to improve my YouTube video titles. I won't bore you with all the twists and turns of the convoluted rabbit hole that I went down that got me to thinking this is the worst time ever to be in the music industry. But we'll start with this. When I did get into the music industry, I was a young guy. I was late teens, probably early 20s, when I made the decision to be a professional musician. And in those days, there were three ways that you could earn money if you were fairly proficient on your instrument. Number one, you could play gigs. And in those days, you could call up a venue. Some of them would have an audition night. Some of them, they'd say, hey, come play a Wednesday night for us. They'd have a couple bands on Wednesday night. If they liked you, they'd bring you back. If things went well, they'd give you a weekend night or maybe even a Friday and Saturday. You'd repeat that until you had a circuit of venues so that you could be playing every weekend and not be playing in the same place. For a lot of musicians, that wasn't quite enough to pay the bills, so they went into method number two for earning money as a musician, which was to give lessons. And a lot of guys I knew back then, they would give lessons Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, they were usually out playing gigs. And they made a full-time living doing that. The third way that musicians would make money is if you worked really hard and you get really lucky and you get a recording contract, you could sell your recordings. Now, when I started, it was all vinyl records. Yeah, I know, I'm old. But it was all vinyl records back in the day. And sure, the record company took a big chunk of it, but you could earn some good money off of that. Back then, there was what I call the musical middle class, and that's where I fell in. We didn't have a record deal, we weren't selling recordings, but we made a full-time living playing gigs. Now, don't get me wrong, you still had to hustle to be successful, but most of your hustle was spent learning the latest popular songs, maybe calling venues and getting those initial bookings, and then making your own flyers. So many of us would be there with a magic marker and a piece of typing paper, and then we'd run down and make a bunch of photocopies in wild colors, and we'd put them up all over town. And that was it. That was all of the non-music stuff that you had to do. Most of your hustle was spent getting really good at your instrument, learning songs that people were going to like, or writing songs that people were going to like, and that was that. That's not the case anymore. Like I said earlier, if you were really lucky and you got a record deal, the record company took over most of the hustle, and you just had to keep writing good material for your records so people would keep buying them. Well, let's start with recorded music. That is no longer a viable income source as of 2023. Everybody knows that physical media sales have dropped off dramatically in the last decade or two. That's really not a viable source for income for musicians anymore, unless you're Adele or Taylor Swift. Today, most people who listen to music listen to it through some streaming platform. They don't buy CDs or vinyl. There's a small fraction of people that do, but most people listen on streaming. Streaming doesn't pay well. You need to have about 1 million streams to get a lower middle class income off of the royalties. So if you've got 5 guys in the band, you need 5 million streams. And everybody's like, oh, well, just get 5 million streams. Well, here's the thing. Think about this. 1% of the recording artists collect 90% of streaming royalties. The other 99% of the artists have to make do with that 10%. Imagine you got invited to some tea party or something in your neighborhood, and the hostess said, hey, I invited 100 people, I'm buying 100 cupcakes. So you get to the party and you see that some guy has come in and he took 90 of the cupcakes, dumped them into a bag and left. And there's still 99 guests there with 10 cupcakes to share. All anybody's going to get is crumbs. And that's the same thing with streaming. All the rest of us, 99%ers, all we get are crumbs. It's not enough to earn a living. Everybody says, oh, well, you just got to be one of the 1%ers. Build your social media presence and become a 1%er. That sounds easy, right? Like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I'll just do that. Well, that's like saying, how do you get to the top of Mount Everest? You just walk up to the top. You climb over some rocks and you walk to the top. Way easier said than done. You make some recordings, you put them out there, and you try to get into that top 1%. But think about this. Every single day, there is between 30,000 and 100,000 new tracks uploaded every day. Depending on whose stats you believe, that's between 1,250 and 4,167 new tracks being uploaded every hour, 24/7, all year long. So then people are like, well, you got to get out there on the social media and build a fan base. Yeah, right. Okay, so YouTube, which is what started this whole thought process for me, right? On YouTube, you've got to be an expert at making thumbnails. You've got to be an expert at writing titles. You've got to be a good videographer. You've got to be able to edit. It just goes on and on and on. And that's not the only platform. There's YouTube, there's TikTok, there's Instagram, there's Spotify, there's Snapchat, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, and then your own website. And on your own website, there's a lot of work to do. Even if you're using a template-based site, you still got to figure out what content you're going to put on there. You got to worry about setting up a merch store and all the stuff that goes with that. You got to worry about SEO, search engine optimization. It's a ton of work. And each one of these platforms requires you need to have what am I trying to say here? Hold on. Hello?
A very particular set of skills.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say. Great, thanks for calling. Gotta go. Bye. You need a very particular set of skills. Some of those skills will transfer across platforms, some of them won't. But that's a lot of platforms to have a lot of skills. And every minute you're spending on TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, every minute you're spending there is a minute away from your instrument, a minute away from writing new material or recording new material. And it's just overwhelming. And I don't know whether it's worth trying to learn all that stuff today and jump into the music business. So people will say to me, well, look, Billie Eilish did it. Look at this guy, Oliver Anthony. They did it. Well, Billie's family, her parents, have connections in the entertainment industry. Again, that's a lottery thing. If you've got somebody in your family that's got connections in the entertainment industry, great. But if you don't, that's not something you can control. Oliver Anthony, he got lucky. Somebody with hundreds of thousands of subscribers on YouTube reposted his material. If that hadn't happened, he might still be playing venues at home. Who knows? What I'm trying to say is the social media thing is no guarantee. It's a lottery. People will say to me, well, just go out and go on tour. Well, unless you're the Foo Fighters or Beyonce, touring is super expensive and stressful. For them, it's still expensive, but they know they're going to have the ticket sales to make that money back. If you're an up-and-coming band, you have no idea whether you're going to make the money back or not. There's a band called Sungazer. Their bass player's name is Adam Neely. The drummer is Sean Crowder. And between the two of them, they've got almost 2 million subscribers on YouTube. You would think that would translate into a lot of money on tour. Well, their first West Coast tour, they came this close to losing $17,000 on a 4-week tour. 4-week tour. Things turned around at the last minute. They were able to break even, but that means they didn't make any money. They were out on the road for 4 weeks and did not come home with anything to pay the bills. So people are like, well, okay, if touring's so expensive, just gig around town and give lessons. Well, gigging around town in this town, they're paying bands the same thing, the same amount of money for a 5-piece band or a 4-piece band that they were paying 30 years ago. That's just not viable. Think about your income. If you were making the same money that somebody in your job was making 30 years ago, would you be able to pay your bills? No, absolutely not. Then there's the whole new artist thing. If you're a new artist, you've got to play open mic nights. You've got to open for other bands. Say Firehouse comes to town and you get a chance to open for them. Well, you're not going to get paid. Firehouse is going to get all the gate. You won't get any of it. And just how long can you do that before you have to cave in and get a job? What about giving lessons? Well, everybody goes online, goes to YouTube these days. They download the tab from the internet and they go online and watch videos. Everybody I know that used to be a full-time music instructor or, part-time performer, part-time instructor, most of them have lost 80 to 90% of their teaching income because everybody's going to YouTube and learning that way. It's hard to make money teaching music today. All right, so that's a lot of negative stuff, right? You can't make money teaching. You can't make money gigging. You can't make money touring. You can't make money selling recordings. Not only do you have to be at some sort of advanced level on your instrument, you've got to be advanced level at website creation and maintenance. You've got to be advanced level on creating videos, and you got to be advanced level on social media, and on and on and on it goes. These are all legit reasons to not get into the music business. Maybe you shouldn't get into the music business. If I was a young guy, if I was the same age today as I was when I jumped into the music business, I don't know that I would get into the music business. That said, there might actually be reasons to get into the music business today, but I'm not going to cover them in this video. That's why this video is called Don't Get Into the Music Business, or whatever I called it. I'm going to do another video, and I think you should come back and watch that one, because I'm going to talk about why you should get into the music business. So that's my rant for today. I got to go out and do some yard work. So live well, rock hard. We'll see you in a few days.